Welcome to the podcast Life After Addiction and Indictment. I'm your host, Steve Cloward, and I spent most of the last decade and well over $100,000 on coaches, consultants, masterminds, and events trying to figure out how to reclaim my life again. On this podcast, I'm going to share the tools, the tips, the tricks, and the hacks that allowed me to forgive myself so that I could reclaim my life again. I'll be interviewing experts in mindset, leadership, entrepreneurship, sales, marketing, branding, and so much more. I'm glad you're here. Sit back and relax and enjoy the show.
Let's go! This is Life After Addiction and Indictment.
Hey, welcome to Life After Addiction and Indictment. Folks, today we've got a gentleman who's got a unique and incredible story. He struggled with alcohol for quite a while, it looks like, and when he decided it was time to get sober, he turned his addictive personality to something that I think is pretty incredible. So welcome to the show, Ben Tuff. How you doing, Ben?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. So, I want to hear your story from your perspective, obviously, since you lived it. Before we get into that, tell us a little bit about how you grew up and, what your exposure and experience was, in your early years, teen years, to alcohol or addiction, and then how you started doing more than just having a drink once in a while.
No, absolutely. So I grew up as the youngest of 6 kids, and I had a very unique upbringing because I also had an identical twin brother.
Oh, wow.
So anybody who's growing up struggles with identity, and when you throw in an identical twin, it puts a whole nother twist on all of that. But we were the youngest in the family. We got brought up in a very British household, and from day one when we were young, alcohol was always around us, and whether it be cocktail parties or, gatherings or family get-togethers, it was just always around us. And from an early age, I always thought that alcohol meant good times and relaxing times and just opportunities to connect with each other. And, the other piece that is important for me in my experience is I also grew up with a lot of anxiety. And I can very much relate to some of the kids today who also struggle with that. And instead of me struggling with like going to school or some of the other anxieties that are present today, I was a big time hypochondriac, and at any little thing that was wrong with me, I would just blow up in my head, and I was convinced I had cancer. And I would say to my parents, I'm dying, like take me to a specialist, and they did. And I would have
with no symptoms. You just kind of got that going in your mind, or what?
I think I had every form of cancer by the age of 15.
Wow.
It was like the littlest of things. Like I would feel a little bump in my back, and it was just like a muscle pull or something. I'd be like, oh my gosh, I have back cancer or something.
Right.
And it probably has something to do with the psychosomatic repercussions of my best friend in 2nd grade got bladder cancer.
Oh man.
And that was a traumatic experience.
I'll bet.
And he ended up going in remission and is still doing great today, but he had his bladder removed, and every day we were told maybe this is Alex's last day. You never know.
At that age, that had to be traumatic as hell.
Right. So, and also like my grandfather, my grandfather had cancer. And then, when I was 15, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer. So it was like something that was on my mind. But it got to the point where I was about 13 or 14, and my mom said to me, Ben, if you have one more of these anxiety issues with a health scare, then I'm going to take you to a psychiatrist. And I'm like, oh my gosh, a psychiatrist, like one of those people.
Yeah.
And of course, like 3 weeks later, I was convinced I had I don't know what I was convinced I was having heart attacks, right?
Okay.
And that I needed like something done to my heart. And of course, she takes me to the heart specialist, and they said, "You're fine. You're just stressed out, and you're having heart palpitations." And then a week later, my mom takes me to like the scariest psychiatrist in all of Atlanta, and this dude was like 78 years old. He had like this Swedish accent, these big glasses. And the first thing he does when I walked in there is I like sat on that leather couch, and he went through those little ink blots and was asking me like what I saw. And I was like, oh my goodness, like this is exactly what I feared. And so I went home after that day, and I was like, I'm never going to tell my parents again when I'm having these issues, or it just drove it down a little bit deeper within myself, which was also unhealthy. And, at 16 or 17, that's when I started to, drink alcohol every weekend. I was playing pretty competitive soccer. So that was a good way to prevent me from going out like crazy.
Right.
But I found like when I drank, I was like, oh my gosh, like I don't think about these things. Like I'm free, like I'm normal, and everything is fine until the next day. And then it's all back. And when it comes back with a vengeance,
So true.
But it progressed that way until, I always knew that if I had an issue or if I was stressed out, I could just drink over it. That was like my go-to thing, like drink, just have a drink, or not just a drink. I mean, with me, it was like 6 or 7.
Right.
But I wasn't quite drinking alcoholically. I'd go through little benders time to time, like hanging out with the guys and doing that. But it wasn't until about 14 years ago when, I was just up and down and just, I blamed it on like seasonal affective disorder, and winters were tougher for me, but I was just down in the dumps all the time. And then come springtime or anything good happening in my life, I was like through the roof. And I found a great excuse to drink over both of them. And I was always looking for a way to just kind of even out. And 14 years ago, I just started to hide alcohol and from my wife, and my kids were too little. They were like 4 and 2 at the time. And it started with like a 12-pack in the basement and like sneaking those, and then it pretty quickly became like a 30-pack in the basement until that got found. And I'm like, oh crap, I gotta do a better job of hiding this. And then I switched to vodka, and then it just went downhill really quickly.
Wow.
And I got to the point where I was going to the liquor store, like right before I ended up getting sober. I would go to the liquor store and I would buy 2 vitamin waters, and I'd sip them down to the label, and then I'd fill it up with a Smirnoff 100 proof vodka, and then I'd cap them up, throw away the vodka bottle, put them in my backpack, and then right before I got home, I'd chug it. So that's like 8 ounces of 100 proof straight to the system. Then I went straight inside and drank a beer to cover it up.
Jeez.
And so each night I was drinking a good 15 to 18 drinks a night. Jeez. And I was a freaking mess. Emotionally, physically, I was 165 pounds, and I, not surprisingly, had a panic attack one day, just super hungover. And my wife took me to the hospital, and
Oh,
I was a triage.
you froze up there, Ben, if you can hear me.
That, and I asked the nurse like an
Sorry,
hour.
apologize? Can you repeat that? For some reason, it froze up for like 6, 7 seconds.
Oh yeah.
So she took you to the ER.
So my wife takes me to the ER, and I'm in that triage room, and
Okay.
I'm just waiting there, and I say to the nurse, like, what's going on? Like, why am I waiting here? Like, can you just admit me and give me the medicine and give me my shot of Ativan or whatever so I can go home? And she was like, well, this was at 11:30 in the morning, and she said, we will admit you as soon as your blood alcohol content comes below a legal limit.
Jeez.
And I was like, looked over at my wife. I was like, cat's out of the bag. Like, whoops. I stopped drinking at 9 o'clock the night before. So you can do the math of how
Wow.
much
It was still
alcohol I had in my system. And I found out later that, I was, my liver was not healthy and it wasn't functioning as it should have.
yeah.
And as a result, I had more alcohol in my system, and my wife said,
Jeez.
right away, okay, you got a choice to make. Either you go get
Yeah,
help right now, or you're going to lose me and the kids. That's it.
Yeah.
I was like, well, why are you saying that? Like, of course, I want help. Like, this is what I need. I just want to figure out what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And that's where I went off the detox for, I think it took me 6 days to detox. And then I went off to Silver Hill Hospital in New Canaan. And 3 days into my stint at Silver Hill, my doctor, Rocky, he was like, Ben, you are textbook bipolar. Like,
Really?
that's why you've been drinking. Like, you have been trying to calm yourself. And this is a really, mental illness, as we know, is very much tied into alcohol abuse and addiction.
Absolutely.
And I found out that that's exactly what I was doing, not to use it as an excuse for what I was doing, but it made so much sense.
Yeah.
And, once I learned how to deal with those emotions and to kind of get it even keel, it helped me jumpstart my recovery.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. So obviously you took the path to get sober. I mean, that ultimatum obviously hit you to the core, when you realize what your wife really means. But then, like you said, having that insight that there's an underlying issue that, you hadn't been told or understood, or doctors hadn't diagnosed previously, that obviously then, helps you figure things out a lot quicker, and understand. And I think that also helps. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but, because there's a lot of guilt and shame that goes on as addicts, and, you beat yourself up bad enough. I definitely did a lot of that. And, I think understanding what the reasons are definitely helps you get through those things and overcome that, shame and that guilt, knowing that there truly was, an underlying issue that now you can recognize, whether it's that or whatever it is. There's always something, and so you got through, stay at that hospital, and you've stayed sober from that point on.
Yes. So I've been sober
That's
for
awesome.
11 years now. And
That's so great.
it's and it kind of helps that, like, as I tell people now when I go speak, or I'm a very forward, obviously, if they made a movie about my alcoholism, it's probably something that I'm kind of out there about. But like, I go around and I tell people, like, I'm the proudest alcoholic around, because it's made me who I am. And it's also empowered me to help others. And that's what I feel that I was put on this planet to do. I taught for 21 years and made differences in kids' lives. And now I get to do it with those who are kind of sick and suffering.
There's nothing better than that, man. Helping people out. That's what it's all about in my mind. Well, let's talk about that. If you're tired of supporting the big corporations and frankly supporting the swamp through paying for cable or satellite service, it's time to defund the swamp and refund the kingdom. The simplest way to do that is to check out the VC Streambox by going to vcstreambox.tv. That is VSEESTREAMBOX.tv. Check out this incredible streaming device that gives you every single local channel throughout the country, any sports channel you can imagine. You'll never miss a game, no matter who your team is ever again, as well as 60,000 video on demand titles, all the TV series you can dream of. There's nothing like it, a one-time fee with no monthly subscription. Not only that, if you're, looking for an additional income, there's an incredible opportunity with their affiliate program that you can simply scroll to the very bottom of any of the pages on the website, vcstreambox.tv, click on the affiliate program title at the very bottom. It will take you to a page that will give you all the information where you can sign up. You'll earn 20% commission paid weekly on any referrals that you send, the unique link that you'll receive via email. Once you have a VC box, you will be blown away and you automatically will get referrals because it is that incredible. I can't even put words to tell people how much people love this thing and how they're blown away by all of the channels that it gives them. It actually includes even 98 Canadian channels and 128 Latino channels. Give us a little insights on the movie, but then, after we finish that up, then let's get into, where you shifted focus. And obviously it's something you evidently have to love because the amount of swimming you do and the distances are truly incredible.
Yeah. So it was actually my first sponsor in rehab. We had to get a sponsor in like day 5. And I found this guy who had a Irish accent and talked about swimming and triathlons, and his name was Ken. And I went up to him. I was like, dude, you're awesome. I could listen to anything you say because you have a sweet accent. And so will you be my temporary sponsor? And the other piece was, could I learn how to swim? And he was like, yeah, I didn't know how to swim when I got into triathlon, and you definitely could. So that was my goal, was to do a triathlon by the end of that summer. And it was.
Had you ever had that desire prior to hearing him talk about that stuff?
No, I was like the biggest wimp ever. When I first got into soccer and competitive soccer, I became a goalie because I was the laziest human being alive.
That's hilarious.
So like anything having to do with exertion and real exercise was not my cup of tea.
Wow.
So it was definitely a shock to the system in the beginning, but I literally didn't know how to swim, and I didn't even know which stroke to do. And finally, after 2.5 months, I was able to kind of barely put together a half-mile swim, which was enough for me to complete my first triathlon. And I competed in triathlons for about 6 years very competitively. But it got to the point where it just got too competitive. Like all I cared about was winning.
Yeah.
And people make fun of me. They're like, well, why did you quit? Like, why'd you stop? You were good. And I mean, the truth is my wife got into triathlon like
really
3 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago. And she started to smoke me, like absolutely destroy me. And I was like, I'm done with this. Like, I can't have my wife beating me at these things.
Great.
Like, I gave her due respect, and I said, I'm going to stick to swimming because I did, in the process of triathlon, find that, once I learned how to breathe properly, the swimming was just so freeing to me. And
wow.
I could, there's something that happens
Is it like
when
therapeutic even for you?
Oh yeah. I mean,
like,
I'm in a
kind
total
of like in a
zone.
meditation, like, yeah, that's cool.
And it kind of got to the point where I can swim. I was like, I could swim for a couple hours and be fine. And
Jeez.
I was like, wait a minute, like, why don't I do like some of these longer swims and try it out? And that's when I signed up for Key West, the race around Key West, which was about 12 and a half miles. And it was awesome.
What is that? What kind of time does that take? Typically
5 hours.
5 hours. Wow.
Or maybe just under 5.
Jeez.
And it was really hot, which I wasn't used to. But it was a really fun experience. You know, my daughter got to hang out at the beach. We made a little vacation, and my brother came down and like kayaked for me. And we're going to do it all over again in a couple months in Islamorada when we go and do a race. Or it's a 10-mile race around.
So how does that work?
house.
Just, I want to know, but also imagine the audience is curious. Like, so when you're doing these long swims, there is, you know, obviously boats in the area and things like that. I mean, for everybody, or do they just set it up based on the event that allows?
Yeah. So for the organized events with many people in it, everybody has a support kayaker.
Okay.
And in that kayak, you'll have like, I don't know, like depending on how long it is, 8 or 9 like Gatorade bottles or what have you. And then you'll have like your food and whatever you're going to be eating during the time. But I kind of went off on my own and started to do bigger swims.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I have support vessels, and I have a support, my best friend Jake, who has kind of stuck with me through the process of sobriety, through everything.
That's cool.
He paddleboards the whole time.
Wow.
Next to me.
Wow.
And he'll be like the guy that goes back and forth between the boat and gets me my water or watermelon or peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, whatever I'm kind of craving at the time. And the fact that he can stand up in
Let's say that's a serious thing. Yeah.
So the last one we did from Providence, which was all of Narragansett Bay, from Providence all the way down to Jamestown, you know, by the third hour, it was 5 to 6 foot seas, and he's on this little paddleboard. I can kind of go through the waves.
That's crazy.
And we did that for
that's got to be brutal, you know, on you, but also him. I mean, it's got to take an extra level of energy to deal with that.
Definitely.
Holy cow, that's intense. Wow. That's a hell of a friend you got.
Yeah. And that's what you know, getting more back to the movie part. About a year and a half ago, I was approached by Matt Corliss, who's a director, and he said, you know, I heard about your swims and doing it for, I do them all for an environmental group called Clean Ocean Access. And I, you know, over the last
raised a bunch of money. I mean, you raised like $250,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So he was like, this sounds really cool. And then I talked to him for about an hour and a half about sobriety and like my journey. He was like, I'm coming up in 4 weeks and we'll start filming.
Wow,
you know,
that's cool.
And so we just started over about a year, just over a year. We filmed here and there, like over a long weekend. He'd fly out from Boulder, or he'd fly down to Atlanta, and I'd meet him down there. And then he spent about a week when we did the long swim and interviewing people, family members. And it ended up, instead of becoming a story of survival, it is survival, but it was more about recovery than anything else.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So where can people watch that?
So right now,
Is it finished?
It's done. Yes. So we had a showing in Atlanta. We'll have a showing in Newport, Rhode Island in a week. And then it just got accepted to the Rhode Island International Film Festival in Providence.
That's cool.
So that's a big festival there. And then from then until about January, it's been submitted, and we don't know whether it's got to a bunch of film festivals.
You gonna get it into Sundance?
So it will be on the list for
if you get in, let me know, because that's 15 minutes from my house.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, Park City's, Sundance is 15 from my house, but Park City, if it ends up, there, then it's about 50 minutes. So I'd love to.
Well, I will be.
That happens. I'd love to come see it.
So I will be in Park City showing the film next. What is it? I think it's next June. Bob Weir is having a festival of musicians. Half of them are musicians and half of them are movies.
Okay.
And so they've invited me to show my film out there at that, which is going to be awesome.
That's cool. So when you have it going through these festivals and stuff, it's not released to the masses till after those things, right?
Right. So the goal of the festivals is to kind of meet the agents and the buyers and
Gotcha.
the Netflix, the distributors. I already have an avenue to get it onto like iTunes, which is a great option.
Yeah.
But if we can get it onto a streaming service, then
it's a hell of a story. Yeah, you got to take it as big as you can. That'll have a huge impact, I think.
And I think it's so important just to get. When we made this film, Matt and I made an agreement right in the beginning that we didn't want it to be like an episode of Intervention, right? We didn't want it to be, like all on the down point, like how awful it is. Of course, it talks about it and it brings that part to life, but it's all about what can come out of it.
Focus to the life that you can have.
Things, right. That's the so positivity. Cool. Yeah.
That is great. Because that provides so much hope, to people to see someone overcome it to the levels that you have and to do what you've done and have that kind of life, because man, when you're in it, I mean, I worried about dumb things, I used to play a lot of golf and I seriously was afraid to get sober thinking I couldn't play golf like I did. Not that I was phenomenal. I was decent, but just the dumbest things that you worry you can't do. And, and like you, I was obviously using stuff to give me a little bit of, more courage and being more comfortable in social settings and being more outgoing, as crazy as that is, that opiates does that for me. But that is such a cool story. Well, tell us any bit more about that, but then I want to get more into depth about the length of some of these swims, because it's amazing. You're swimming damn near as far as a marathon as runner.
Yeah. So as far as the movie is concerned, if people want to see where it is, you can always look at swimtuff.com. And then my Instagram is at Ben .tuff, TUFF, and there'll be updates anytime we're going to be around places. And the fun thing is that like even I don't know where we're going to be in a month's time. And I'll also be doing kind of private showings at everything from businesses to rehabs to schools. Those are
that right there has got to be just even at that level. That's what an impact and how cool that is,
Right.
That's so cool.
And I'm so psyched about that. I've already started doing that, and it's amazing actually how proactive companies are starting to get when it comes to addiction and addiction support. And the problem is that they don't know how to get the word out there to their employees about it. And this could be a great vehicle to do that. Yeah.
I mean, because stuff like that, I don't care who you are, whether you have those tendencies or not. That's just, it's for some reason it captivates people, you're just curious. I mean, I can't, when people find out I went to prison, they have all these questions. They're so curious about those kind of things too, and so I think it's such a great medium to be able to reach people like you're saying that otherwise wouldn't, they wouldn't know how to reach. So that is, I mean, you got to be damn proud of that. That is very awesome.
Yeah, no,
I mean,
totally. It's awesome.
like you said, I can't remember if it was before we started recording or not, but like you said, feel like you were called to do what you're doing now. I mean, to me, with what's happened with that right there, to me, there's no doubt, I mean, how that
Right.
came about, that's just not by chance, that's pretty incredible. So that's very cool.
Yeah, I would say the coolest thing so far that I've experienced is that I've been able to take 3 of my former students to rehab. And
wow.
That's just in the last 3 months.
Oh my hell, how rewarding is that?
The kind of like cat's out of the bag, Ben
Right.
is sober, and he's also knows a lot about it. He knows how to get people help. And my kids trust them like more than anyone else, and he can help them through this process and make it a little bit easier.
Yes.
And that's been very cool to experience that.
What did you
sure.
teach when you were teaching? And
So I taught
what
English.
age?
Yeah, I taught at a boarding school,
Okay.
and it's a middle school. So
Okay.
boarding 5th grade through 9th grade, and I taught 7th, 8th, and 9th grade English.
So I sense that you're the type that, would probably connect to kids,
Right.
which obviously with what you've been through and stuff is why you're been able to help 3 people, and I imagine many more to come, because it's getting worse and worse out there with how this world is and as crazy it's been the last few years. And I think where things might be going is going to be, it's going to be rough on people.
Absolutely. And they have to have outlets.
Yep, exactly.
And outlets and people who they trust. That's what's key, I think, to making sure that our kids are able to kind of find their way during difficult times.
Exactly. Wow, that movie's going to play a massive role, man. That is so great. So cool. Well, let's focus as we wrap things up over the next 5 or 10 minutes. So these swims, so you got into these longer distance swims. We talked a little bit about it and your buddy helping you. So what is the longest swim that you've done?
So yeah, my longest was 24 miles from Providence to Jamestown. The problem with that is with the ocean comes the tide and the wind, and it was against the wind and against the tide for most of it. So
Jeez.
that made it, that made it
Much slower.
Pretty a long trip. It was a 15-hour venture, and
Yeah.
it's just and for people it's like, how do you do that? Well, you can break it up to 30-minute segments. So it's just in my mind, it's only 30 not little swims, but 30
Right.
swims, basically 30 1 mile, what would be a 1 mile segment, because I'll swim about 2.1 miles per hour. But when you have a current going against you, it can be less than that. And wind and current, it'll be a lot less than that. And the frustrating thing with the that swim was that I was supposed to be going 2 miles every hour, and then there was 1 hour that I went 300 yards.
Are you kidding?
Yeah. So it was basically going in a treadmill, just kind of.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That much wind current. Holy!
I was so mad. I was so mad.
What's the biggest swells you've been in? You try to time it, you try to work around weather the best you can.
Yeah, so I've had to reschedule 2 of my swims because of weather, because of big swells. Like when I went from Block Island to Jamestown, it's a 19-mile swim, but the problem is swell and sharks. Those are the 2 biggest things. It's one of the biggest migratory areas for great white sharks. It's right there. And there were sharks when I was swimming. They didn't say anything about it, but they spotted sharks. and I just kept going.
Have you
And
ever been aware of one when you're swimming close enough to you that
yeah,
you're aware
well,
of?
in the Keys, you see a ton of them,
It's
or at
just
least
because
I
of the
did,
water
just because it's so
clear
you
and
see everything.
yeah.
And I did see one thresher shark when we were on our swim, and a thresher shark has that like really big tail and like a mouth that's like this big.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about them.
So when you're swimming in an area that has, the migratory great whites and stuff, how does that work as far as spotters? Do they ever have helicopters or just people in boats?
We kind of just didn't worry about it, really,
Yeah.
truthfully. I mean, I wore an Ocean Guardian on my ankle, which is about a half-pound ankle
Sends out some.
device,
Uh-huh.
and then it has a 3-foot-long cable on it that's about like this far around, like a maybe half an inch diameter, and it
Uh-huh.
gives off every 6 seconds. It pulses with an electric
Gotcha.
shock.
So they're aware
So
that would keep them. I got you.
that's the only thing that's proven to keep great whites away.
Jeez, that's intense. Yeah. That's
So
crazy.
it was good enough for me.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't feel comfortable doing it without one of those, would you?
No, it wouldn't be very smart. Like
Right.
all the swimmers that do like the Molokai channel swim in Hawaii, they have to have them. Like it's just
Yeah.
something that would not be.
They're obviously
And
effective.
anybody who's they just have to do it.
Well, do you have any big swims coming up? Or, I mean, do you have any big goals? I mean, you've already done incredible things. I'm not trying to say that anything that you haven't, but just hearing what you've done already and the way you are, it wouldn't surprise me if you got something, that you've got cooked up sometime down the road. I don't know if that's true or not, but what's a world record swim or?
Like they're ridiculous.
Really?
Yeah, like I think Cameron Bellamy has the world record swim. It's over 24 hours.
Jeez.
And I think it was a circumnavigation of Barbados or something crazy like that.
Wow.
I mean, you're talking about like over, and then you have Diana Nyad, who had it for a while, which was from Cuba to Miami, and that was
Holy
what,
cow.
like 68 miles, maybe 70 miles. So it's like a whole nother ball
Level.
game.
Yeah.
But I just like doing things for the first time. Like,
Yeah, that's cool.
To have two kind of semi records is, because I'm the only one dumb enough to do it, is kind of cool.
No kidding.
I'm always looking for that next challenge. I knew I couldn't do it this summer just because things are so crazy with the movie and speaking stuff and getting things off the ground. And my body just needed a little bit of a break.
Jeez.
So
that's cool.
I have looked at maybe doing circumnavigation of Nantucket, which is about 33 miles, but very sharky and a lot of weird currents. I think it's doable though. No one's done that.
Really?
And
jeez,
there's so many islands that you could do. That the circumnavigations are fun because number one, you're not in the middle of the ocean just in case something happens. And number two, people can kind of follow along on the shore the whole time.
Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. So when you're two questions to wrap things up for you, when you're breaking it up and taking your breaks, what does that entail? What does a break look like? I mean, just when you're kind of rehydrating and putting some food in your body.
My coach, David Martin, is awesome. And he's done all kind of experiments on me. And I know that in 70 to 73 degree water, I'll lose about 17 ounces every 30 minutes. So that's how much liquid I'll put in. And then I'll take in electrolytes if necessary. But sometimes if it's really rough and you're drinking salt water, you have to cut out the electrolytes like the last swim, because then you become hyponatremic and you can die from that if you get too much salt in your body. But I'll eat everything up from like Snickers bars to Reese's peanut butter cups to watermelon. I drink like one of the best drinks that I've ever come across was drinks. It's called Drink Simple, and it's pure maple sap. So it's maple sap before it's boiled down. And in the days leading up to the event, it's naturally rich in electrolytes. So I will put down at least a half a case of those leading up to the event. And then during the event, I'll probably drink 3 liters of it, because it's when you're drinking all these sugary drinks, it just gets so old. And it's like when you're drinking Gatorade and you just don't want it. So that's always a good mix. And cool. And then I'm just trying to think any other random things that I like. Temperature plays a big difference in it too. And if it gets hotter, I'll have to drink more. And if it gets colder, then I'll take warm drinks if possible.
Gotcha. Wow. Well, obviously, when you come into sobriety after you've been through what I call at times the darkness, there's a lot of struggle for a lot of people, and breaking through. There's a lot of different things that obviously help people break through to step more into their power. Obviously, swimming did that, for you, for the people listening, what did it do for you from a mental standpoint, to really change things for you, if it did at all? I imagine it did, but I don't want to make that assumption.
So the toughest time I had in rehab was when on Sundays we would do yoga, and then we would have to practice like mindfulness and be totally quiet in our heads. And I could not for the life of me do that.
It's difficult.
It was the hardest thing for me.
Yeah.
But I found that and it's the same thing that with my crazy students, like that were bouncing off of the wall. If I gave them like silly putty or like some of those fidget toys, it was like suddenly they could like cue in a little bit more. They can center themselves. And for me, swimming allows me to center myself, find that mindfulness. It allows me to process anything that I need to process, anything that I'm struggling with in my brain. And it allows me to just disappear. And I don't want to say made me disappear in the same way that alcohol did, but it allows me to in a very conscious way instead of an unconscious way.
Yeah.
And at the same time, when I got out of rehab, I said to myself, okay, like I'm done drinking. I am going to be the most fit dude ever. Like I'm not like going to the gym and like doing that, but I'm going to be in shape. I'm going to be, taking care of myself. And I went from 165 pounds to 215 pounds in months, So it was just like, okay, this swimming thing, it's gonna stick. And I love the way it makes me feel.
I bet, yeah. That's cool. And did it do a lot for your confidence, or not saying you lacked it, but I guess the better word is any of the anxieties?
Oh yeah. I mean, like I'm one of the chillest people ever. Like when it comes to, and that is just because I've learned to calm down my brain and how to process in a healthy way instead of processing in an unhealthy way. And
that's so key.
Spiral us down.
Yeah. I think that is so key, being able to do that, and that mindfulness, meditation, quieting that mind and catching what's happening when it's not quiet and not driving on and spiraling down is so critical.
Right.
Well, Ben, this has been awesome. Very interesting. I appreciate your time. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
No, like it's been great chatting with you, and hopefully I can meet some of your listeners and get them to see the movie sometime soon.
That'll be great. And I'll have your URL at swimtuff.com, right? We'll have that in the show notes as well as your Instagram. I'll start following you for sure and keep tabs on you, because I definitely want to see that movie as soon as it gets even remotely close to where I'm at. It'd be awesome. So look forward to that and look forward to meeting you.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for your time. Have a great afternoon.
All right. You too.
Take care.
Are you tired of paying exorbitant monthly fees for your in-home entertainment? Do you wish there was a way to bring quality and affordable entertainment right into your household without a monthly subscription? Well, look no further. Introducing the VC Box Android TV Stream Box. Since 2020, VC Box has been enriching people's lives all over the world, and now it's coming to North America. Say goodbye to scattered subscriptions and countless apps. We've got all your streaming in one place. This is the best fully loaded Android TV box provider in North America. Our user-friendly interface makes navigation a breeze, and with the voice remote featuring Google Assistant, finding your entertainment has never been easier. The VC Box V2 Pro Android box is the epitome of convenience. Sit back, relax, and enjoy your favorite shows and movies with just a few simple voice commands. And the best part, no monthly subscriptions. That's right, you heard it correctly. Say goodbye to those pesky recurring fees and hello to endless entertainment. Join the VC Box revolution and elevate your entertainment experience. Don't miss out on this amazing opportunity. Visit our website and order your VC Box now. Bring home the VC Box today and bring endless joy and excitement to your household. VC Box, unleash the power of entertainment.